Hello, and welcome to the webinar, Carbon Reduction and Management Tools, which is part of a business workshop on carbon, tactics and tools for carbon strategy and management. This is one of 4 webinars organized for you by Evolution Marketing and the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. This series speaks to the importance of proactively addressing carbon in your business by joining thousands of businesses across the globe, learning how to manage carbon and climate risk at a time when the need for business resilience is at an all-time high. This webinar will address at a high level the business case for caring about carbon. It will talk about carbon reduction methods and tools and demonstrate an easy tool for how to estimate your carbon footprint. You will also learn about 2 free Action Manager tools that can help you get started and advance in your carbon journey, as well as to help you determine what is important for your business and give you ideas about what you can do for carbon. My name is Jessie Servi-Ortiz, and I'm the Managing Director of the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. It is our mission to advance sustainable principles and practices forward through the power of business. We do this through education and webinars and events like this. We also help businesses measure and improve their material sustainability metrics or sustainability programs through consulting or with programs like our 21st Century Pathways program or our free Green Masters program, which I'll be talking about today. We also facilitate connection for businesses and practitioners to learn from each other through events like our annual conference in December each year. I'm going to introduce today's speakers for you. We have with us Kathy Kuntz, Climate Specialist at Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change. Kathy has almost 30 years of experience influencing customers, businesses, and whole communities to adopt sustainable practices and technologies. She's currently part of the team creating an economy-wide climate action plan at Dane County. From 2010 to 2019, Kathy led Cool Choices, a Wisconsin-based nonprofit that worked with businesses to engage their employees around sustainability. Prior to that, she led Focus on Energy, Wisconsin's statewide energy efficiency and renewable energy program. With us, we also have Lisa Giesenbauer, who founded Evolution Marketing in 2007 as Wisconsin's first triple bottom line managed marketing and sustainability consulting firm. She currently serves as an advisory board member for our advisory board on Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council and Be Local Wisconsin. Under Lisa's leadership, Evolution Marketing became the 7th certified B Corp in Wisconsin in 2008, and in 2019, Evolution Marketing began offering their professional services in a carbon neutral manner. I've already told you who I am, but prior to taking the role for Managing Director at the Council, when Tom Eggert retired, I worked for Outpost Natural Foods Co-op and developed and managed their sustainability program, including doing our carbon footprint and offsetting management. And now I'm going to hand it over to Kathy.
Thanks so much, Jessie. I'm delighted to be part of this today. My piece of our webinar is really to talk about the business case for sustainability and what you can do. And I want to just start with a couple of definitions. So we're talking about climate mitigation and sustainability, and just to kind of put us all in the same place. I define sustainability, like most of the industry does, as really meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. I have a picture of a big tent here because I think of sustainability as the term that's really broad and encompasses a lot of what organizations do in this realm. That things that are cost effective and reduce waste and all sorts of things. As we're starting to talk about climate issues, we start to get into some other terms like net zero carbon or carbon neutral. This is a more aggressive position. And when I talk about net zero carbon or carbon neutral, typically folks mean that you're looking at all of your activities. So your building energy use, your transportation, your food, your supplies, all of the things, and reducing emissions associated with all of those activities and goods. And then, in one way or another, you're offsetting the remaining emissions. That could be through buying green power, it could be through planting trees. There's lots of ways to do that offset, but that yields a net zero carbon. And that's different than net zero energy. There are a lot of terms here. Net zero energy usually refers to a single facility. And there we're talking about a really high efficient facility. It could be a house, it could be a hospital, it could be a school that typically is powered completely with electricity. And there are on-site renewable energy systems, most typically solar electric, that are providing all of the electricity for that facility. So that might mean there are batteries that are storing electricity at night, or it might mean that the systems feed into the grid sometimes and pull back. But the point is that over the course of a year, all of the electricity used by the facility is produced by on-site generation. So that's sort of maybe the apex of what we're talking about in this kind of climate mitigation realm, getting to facilities that are net zero energy. Just some terms for us all to have. I want to first, though, really dig into why act now. And really, I think there are multiple arguments here. For a long time, we've known that companies that pursue corporate sustainability, that pay attention to and eliminate waste in their processes, do better financially. There's really clear data that the companies with corporate sustainability programs outperform companies without them. And you're starting to see investors really recognize this, exemplified by the fact that 8 in 10 S&P 500 companies are publishing sustainability reports at this point. And estimates are that 70% of institutional investors are looking at those reports when they decide who to invest in. So there's just a core business case that it's good business to do these things. Beyond that, for a long time, we've known that consumers at least express in surveys their preference for companies that are sustainable and products that are sustainable. What you might not know is there's growing evidence that consumers are really serious about this. This isn't just expressing a preference in a survey, it's voting with their dollars. And there's I've tried in this presentation as much as possible to provide you with links. There's a link to a Forbes article about how companies are really struggling to meet those consumer expectations. There's also some recent analysis in Harvard Business Review that increasingly there's pretty clear evidence that consumers, when presented with two choices, one sustainable, one not, they're going to pick the sustainable product. And so this is another piece of that business case. This means that your customers are looking for you to be reducing your carbon emissions, to be on the kind of right side of history here. And it's not just customers, it's also your staff. So we've seen this research over the last few years that millennials and the generations after them are voting with their careers, that increasing numbers of them are opting for careers in one organization over another based on a company's performance on sustainability. But it's not just the younger folks. Some research on kind of employee engagement shows that 7 in 10 employees across all age groups want to be part of efforts in their organization to make things more sustainable. They want to have an environmental and social impact in their work. So there's really kind of all of the stakeholders, the investors, the customers, the employees, they're all saying, I want to be in a place that's leading on this. That's a pretty strong business case in itself. Then you add some other things, like the fact that the economics of opting for clean energy have never been better. Over the last decade, the price of solar modules has fallen 90%. So That's just tremendous. And it's why you see in the news stories about utilities building utility scale solar farms. Today, those solar installations are cheaper than running power plants. So there's a dramatic economic case here too. There's also a really serious environmental case. So in 2019, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued an interim report, their 1.5 degree report, where essentially they said in the next decade, by 2030, we need to get on a path to deep decarbonization. We need to specifically reduce our emissions about 45% by 2030 if we intend to limit warming to just 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the scientists are telling us now is the time we have to act. And this is also reflected in what regular folks know across Wisconsin. So there's a project out of Yale, the Yale Climate Communication Study, that does survey work with Americans around climate change and global warming issues. And in 2019, they found that 2/3 of Americans everywhere in the country agreed that global warming was happening. This is a map of their research in Wisconsin by county. So if there were any counties that were white or blue, that would mean that less than half of residents in that county believed global warming was happening. And as you can see, there are no white and blue counties. Everyone is in agreement. The majority everywhere in Wisconsin thinks this is happening. More, there are a number of places in Wisconsin, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Green Bay, Milwaukee, all of Dane County, where local governments are implementing aggressive climate goals. All of those places I listed are implementing plans to cut their emissions in half economy-wide by 2030. That represents 1/3 of the people living in Wisconsin are in one of those communities. So it's highly likely that your business in one way or another might be interacting with a community that's going to be looking for citizens and businesses and everyone to do their part to reduce emissions in the next decade. So that is another big piece of why you want to be thinking about this. So now, given that I've said there's a ton of good business reasons for you to be thinking about how to reduce your emissions, where do you start? And just at a high level, talk about some things. I think the first place to start is to get a sense of how you compare to similar companies. So if you're a dry cleaner, it makes sense to look at how your operations compare to other dry cleaners. If you're a restaurant, it makes more sense to look at how you compare to other restaurants. And one of the ways you can do that is with EPA's Energy Star Portfolio Manager. It's a free tool. It's a federal tool that lets you upload your energy and water usage, and then they compare you to similar businesses across the country. They normalize for weather, they normalize for size. It's really a very robust system to let you see how are we doing. The analogy would be if you were going to start running and you thought, I'm a very fast runner, but you'd never run against anyone else. We all know there's some advantage in seeing how do my efforts compare. So Energy Star Portfolio Manager is really a good place to get that sense of how do I compare. Then, of course, you want to see how do you get better. In terms of energy use in your facilities, I think there are two kind of big categories. The first is choosing efficient equipment. Now, most of us are familiar with the Energy Star label. You may also be familiar with the WaterSense label, labels that essentially tell you these products are more efficient than the other options. Okay, just a core rule here. The efficient product is always better made than the inefficient product, because the only way to get efficiency is to increase quality. So I really encourage you to think about this in a long-term way. Very often over my career, I've heard companies say, well, we won't do that because it's a 5-year payback. And my immediate thought is always, don't you plan to be in business in 5 years? I mean, a 5-year payback is a 20% return on investment every year. That's a pretty good return in this economy. So really thinking about how do we invest for the long term. Sometimes the Energy Star option doesn't even cost more. So really making it a priority that you choose efficiency. The other kind of simple thing to do is to just reduce waste in your operations. I've never encountered a company where there isn't some level of kind of what I would call silly waste, of things being left on, of vehicles idling, of garage doors left open to let the heat out, kind of all of this stuff that just sort of happens in the course of doing your work, but sends a really negative signal to both your customers and your employees about what your priorities are. I mean, if you're saying we're a smart, innovative company, and the employee looks out the window and sees the sprinklers going in the rain, that doesn't really scream innovation to them. So one of the things you want to do is really be mindful about how do we get our arms around some of that silly stuff we're doing so that we stop doing it. The next thing to pay attention to is the opportunity for solar. So the picture here is from Project Sunroof. This is a Google tool where you can put in an address and see the rooftop of that address, and they'll give you an estimate of the solar potential. So a really kind of low risk way to start thinking about this. I mentioned how solar panels have low prices. There are also federal tax credits. There are focus on energy incentives. You can use PACE financing to finance solar on your facility in such a way that you have positive cash flow the entire time that you're paying off the solar. The other thing here is that solar can be a really good way to promote and demonstrate your commitment to climate action to your customers as well as employees. There's a lot of data about how installing solar systems increases customer interest in a business. It can increase employee applications. It's a very visible thing for a company to do. And so think about that kind of visibility power there. The other place to really pay attention to your emissions, of course, is on transportation, on your fleet expenses. And there you might have opportunities to convert to electric vehicles, or if you're running heavy diesel equipment, certainly we encourage you to look at renewable natural gas, which is a growing opportunity in the Midwest. Again, here there are operational opportunities, the reduced idling, the verifying that your drivers are practicing eco-driving. Wisconsin Clean Cities is a really good resource here, and I want you to think of your fleet as kind of mobile marketing for your operations. The photo here is actually one of Lisa with her electric vehicle, and you know, you want people to see your values, and it's another place for you to show those values. So with that, the last thing I want to do is show you a carbon calculator that's going to give you just a little bit of a sense of how this can work. And this is a calculator developed by folks at UC Berkeley, and it just happens to be the one that I think is kind of simple to use and really informative. There's a lot of data behind it. So what happens here is you pick your region. So I picked Wisconsin. I picked that we'll talk about, let's say this is a real estate broker kind of folk. In here, I can put how many employees I have. So you notice that if I increase this number, it increases the anticipated emissions, it increases the annual revenue. I don't know that it increased my square footage. I'll increase that a bit more. So, you know, you're some basic information about your company. And then the data that it provides on each of these subsequent tabs is based on their research from a variety of national and local sources about what's typical. So based on what I said there, they're telling me probably I had this many miles across vehicles. Now, I'm in Wisconsin, so I might not have any public transit. The air travel that tool here is just really nice. If I can, doesn't want me to go over here. So advanced, I can like actually say, oh, I made 10 short trips and 2 medium trips. And again, my chart is changing based on that. I said I had 10 employees, the employee commute. I find their numbers are a little bit small sometimes for what some of us see in some areas of Wisconsin, so I can adjust that number too. Similarly, on facilities, I can put in my kilowatt hours and therms per year. Again, they're giving me averages based on the data they're pulling from studies of commercial businesses across the U.S., but I can change that. I can go, oh no, we have a lot more electric usage. And then you see that, oh, look how my electricity went way up when I did that. They've also got a tab of procurement where you can specify all the kinds of things you buy. And then you get a summary where it tells you sort of how you're doing and the ability here to take action. So I could replace a vehicle with a hybrid vehicle as one of my pledges, and you see that. I could install PV panels on my building, and you see how that will reduce our electric usage. And part of what I like about this tool is it lets you, you can keep going back and forth. I can zip over here and go, oh, let's change this to say that half of the power we buy comes from renewable sources. Then that reduces my emissions there, etc. So that's sort of how that tool works. I'm going to jump back over here because then it's time for the next to switch back to Jesse.
That was a great overview. Oh, making sure I'm off mute here. Okay. Thank you so much. That was a great overview, and I especially like that tool as well. So what I'm going to talk about next is our Green Masters program. And this is another free tool for businesses to assess their sustainability and improve. So what this is an action management tool for businesses to track, manage, and again, improve their sustainability and resiliency inside their business. So the Green Masters program overall is about assessment, about recognizing leadership and actions taken by businesses, and it's a certification that allows businesses to sort of show that they're taking actions to move forward. And it's an integrated, system-wide approach to sustainability inside your business. So the Green Masters program was developed in collaboration with the council, with Wisconsin businesses, and with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it's currently in its 12th year. It's not a degree program. Essentially, it's a tool for you to manage the actions that you are taking or that you could take to become more sustainable as an organization. Kathy talked about benchmarking. This program is also a way to benchmark. I'll talk a little bit about that, but you also can get recognized for your efforts, and then you earn a certificate that validates that you're working towards improvement. So our program has 9 categories or areas that you need to be taking action in. Today, we're specifically talking about carbon. However, our program, again, takes a system-wide approach to sustainability and requires participants to take at least one action in each of these 9 areas to qualify for the program. Now, that might sound daunting, but really one action in each of these is simpler than you may think, and businesses usually find that when they apply, they are doing more than they realize that they are doing, or that there are actions from our list of actions that they could very easily take. The program is a points-based program, and this is the process. Each action in the program is scored based on its impact, how hard is it to do, how hard is the action, and then how big of an impact does that action have. So for example, installing solar panels takes more effort and more time than, say, changing your light bulbs to LED. And it has a much larger impact on emissions, thus affecting your business, affecting the community, and affecting the environment. So the process is quite simple. You fill out your application in an online manager tool, then you receive a score via email, and then you can track your progress. For starters, it's best to download the application and use it as a planning tool. Many businesses have built their sustainability programs using our list of actions as a way to determine what is appropriate for their organizations, how they can integrate sustainability into their operations, into their culture. Many use it in their green teams as a way to focus the conversation or generate project ideas, as well as to engage enthusiastic employees on something that they might be passionate about. So others are using it as a way to leverage additional value from ongoing programs or systems, or even as a budgeting tool. And some folks even use it to engage their customers or their stakeholders or their supply chain in the sustainability conversation. So as a points-based program, there's 3 levels that you can come in at. The first is Green Apprentice. Next, we have Green Professional, and then Green Masters is the top level. This recognizes the top 20% of program participants in a current year, and those Green Masters are celebrated and acknowledged at our annual conference every year. Just to give you a little context, in 2019, the average score was 469, and there were 130 participants in the program. This is a quick look at the benchmarking capabilities. So this dashboard gives you a snapshot of how you compare to other businesses in your sector. You can see this business here applied on July 11th of 2019. The company is a manufacturer, and their score was 332. On the other side, you can see how this company compares to other companies in the sector. You can see their score first, then you see the high score, 706, then you see the average score of that sector, 458, and then you see the low score in that sector, 116. So you can see that this company was a little bit below the average. And then on the bottom, it breaks out how your company score is based on each of the program categories. So down at the bottom, then you can see where your carbon falls and compared to others in your sector. So we're currently working on making this dashboard feature more dynamic, but currently this is what it looks like for program participants in 2020. And then you also get a dashboard snapshot view of how your company is progressing. So if you apply year over year, this business just applied in 2018, 2019, you can see how you're improving, where you're improving, or where you might need to put some focus in your business. This is a look at what it looks like online when you go to the Action Manager itself. You can see on the left there's a table of contents, and then it's a list of questions that you can really easily click on. This graphic I put together really is meant to illustrate that sustainability in all areas, and especially in carbon, is really a progression. So it's a journey. You don't go from newbie to advanced overnight. You have to start at a starting point, and you can't start at the end. You really have to start on the beginning. So this graphic is actually the actions that you're being asked inside of the Green Masters program. So we start with the basics. So over on the left, do you track relevant carbon metrics? So are you that calculator Kathy showed? Are you doing that, and are you seeing where you fall on emissions? So this is a starting point. From here, you can't manage what you're not measuring, and then we live in the age of transparency. So our customers, our stakeholders, our suppliers, our employees, they want to know how we're doing. And so do you share that information with them? Do you share it publicly? Progressing then, do you set targets? Do you set metrics for reduction or goals for reduction? Focusing on efficiency first. And then what's your commitment to this category, in this case, carbon? What's your commitment to carbon? What's your strategy? Kathy mentioned net zero and defined that term. Is that part of your strategy? Or do you want to increase efficiency and then potentially implement renewables in the future? Now you can start talking about where you want to go once you know where you're at. And then do you focus on, or maybe you want to focus on your product efficiency outside of its use, or during its use, after you're done making it. Next, have you identified what risks are in relation to carbon, and are you working to reduce or manage those risks ongoing? Then we get to kind of the more advanced topics of scoping, which if you're not sure what that is all about, you can refer to another webinar in this series called Carbon Jargon. That's going to define all of the key terms for you, including what is a part of Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. Then, have you met those goals? So as we're progressing here, you've set goals, you have a commitment. Are you reaching your goals? Maybe you decide to become a member of a coalition or sign a pledge that you're working towards science-based targets. Again, this just illustrates a progression, and it's actually the questions you're being asked in the Green Masters program. So, and just to clarify, you don't have to answer all of the questions inside of the program. It's really meant to be a large list for you to think about what you could be doing inside of your business. And so lastly, this is our website. It's wisconsinsustainability.com. Here you can find more about the program. You can see here on the Green Masters tab on the top that you can download the application, or you can go right to the web link. You can also see who is participating in Wisconsin. Again, right now, this is really for Wisconsin-based businesses or businesses with an operation in Wisconsin. That doesn't mean others can't apply. It just means that we're benchmarking and giving Wisconsin businesses the certificate. We also have a mentorship program. So this is where if you're a new business and you want support from another business, we match Green Master companies with newbies to help you help assist you. I think Lisa in Evolution Marketing has been a Green Masters company for many years, and she's definitely helped other businesses to fill out their application and advance in their programming. So now I am going to turn it over to Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessie. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Jessie and Kathy did a fantastic job of laying the foundation for all of the key things that businesses should be thinking about. So I own Evolution Marketing. We're a small marketing communications firm located in Neshota, Wisconsin. And as Jessie said, I've been involved with the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council basically since its inception, because I really do believe it's important for businesses to be thinking towards the future. And that's kind of why we named our company Evolution, because we're all about evolving. So with that said, Evolution Marketing is also a certified B Corporation. Jessie had mentioned that earlier. We became certified as a certified B Corp in the summer of 2018. And I'm going to tell you why that's important in just a minute. But for those of you who are not familiar with what a certified B Corporation is, that means that we are a business. We are one of the many businesses. And in Wisconsin right now, we have 13 certified B Corps, and there's about 3,500 of us in the world that meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. B Corps are accelerating a global culture shift to redefine success in business and build a more inclusive and sustainable economy. Society's most challenging problems cannot be solved by government and nonprofits alone. The B Corp community works towards reducing inequality, lowers levels of poverty, creating a healthy environment, stronger communities, and the creation of more high-quality jobs with dignity and purpose. By harnessing the power of business, B Corps use profits and growth as a means to greater end. By harnessing the power of business, B Corps use profits and growth as a means to a greater end, positive impacts on their employees, communities, and the environment. And as you heard Kathy talk about, employee engagement is a large part of why I believe many businesses choose to become certified B Corps, because their employees are very interested in a business that is giving back. So today I'm going to share with you information about the SDG Action Manager. Now, I said before, I'm going to tell you why it's important to know that I'm a B Corp. So the certified B Corp community, we get audited every 3 years by an organization called B Labs. They're a nonprofit entity. And the platform that B Labs uses to do our certifications, which is a full audit of our complete operations, that platform is what the SDG Action Manager was built on. Okay, so the SDG Action Manager is, and this is really cool. This is a brand new tool that just came out in January of 2020, and I'm going to give you a little bit about background about why this tool was created. The SDG Action Manager was created due to a global need for business to be able to track their actions across a company in an interconnected way that could be measured. This is an excellent planning tool for businesses as well. It's based on the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, if you're not familiar with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere. There are 17 goals, and they were adopted by the UN member states in 2015 as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which set out a 15-year plan to achieve the goals. Not only did the Sustainable Development Goals identify where we should be in 2030 to create the sustainable world we seek, but they also provide a unique chance for all sectors to rally around a common global agenda, one that unites us to take responsibility to improve people's lives and save our planet. So as you can see, it's all connected. The SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals are connected, and they fit together with what the B Corp mission is. As I've told you, why being a B Corp is important to me and what we're working to do as businesses, okay? Some say that we are working in the space called business for good. The second part of this is that what's really cool about the SDG Action Manager is one of the 17 goals of the SDGs is Action Goal 13, which is climate action. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how this tool was created. So the SDG Action Manager tool was created jointly by the UN Global Compact and B Labs, the organization that certifies B Corps. And it's based on the B Impact Assessment, and it ties in with the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think this is a super cool tool, and it takes a holistic systems approach to helping businesses to address these challenges that we're going to be seeing, global challenges that we're going to be seeing coming. I mean, right now we're in a global pandemic, and this is something that most businesses probably were not prepared to address. I know my business was not prepared to address a global pandemic that would change the way business is done. So I think that when we start to look towards the future, working towards meeting these goals will help us to address some of these bigger risks the business sees coming. The businesses can't see at this time, but that will be coming down the pike because the world is changing. All right, so here's a picture of what the SDG Action Manager tool looks like inside. If you were to go online and to sign up for the program, and by the way, it's free and anybody can sign on for it. So what you see here on the left is a screenshot of what's called the baseline. So everybody who completes this tool will complete the baseline, okay? And the baseline is based on the UN Global Compact's 10 principles, which serve as a foundation for all of the modules, and it further demonstrates the interconnected nature of this tool. And then below the baseline, you'll see where it says remaining. Those are each of the rest of the goals, okay? And the baseline plus module approach has been designed to optimize engagement and improvement among businesses while also acknowledging important interconnections and principles within the Sustainable Development Goals. The combination of the two, a comprehensive baseline approach and an in-depth assessment on specific SDGs creates a balanced structure that can provide the most meaningful insights for all, okay? And as you can see underneath the baseline here, I have a screenshot here of the UN Global Compact 10 principles. These principles, again, are the foundation for creating this tool. And these are all things that the majority of the countries in the world, I believe there are only 3 countries that didn't sign on to the UN Sustainable Development Goals back in 2015. This is something that we as a world are united on. Okay, next slide. We're now looking at specifically the SDG Action Goal number 13. So for those of you who are not familiar, when the 17 goals were created by the UN, they're made up of 169 targets, okay? And so what you're looking at right now are the 3 targets. And when I say targets, these targets are the measurable ways that the UN would like businesses to chart our actions, okay? So we're trying to, and what you hear about a lot in the business community is, how do we map what our business is doing to the specific goals and then targets of each of the different SDGs? And what's really cool about this SDG Action Manager is it helps businesses to do that, okay? Okay, so as you can see, these targets, so for example, target 13.1, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. So you might say, well, my business is only operating in Wisconsin. How can I be doing things that will impact target 13.1? And that's where you start to look at and unpack the things that you are doing in your business. For example, maybe you look at your supply chain and you realize that pieces of, you're making a product in Wisconsin, say you're assembling a product in Wisconsin, but you realize that there are inputs that went into your supply chain that are coming from a different country. Okay, well, which country is it coming from? Is it a developing country? What do the rules look like? So it says climate-related hazards and natural disasters. So what types of practices and protocols are the company that's making your product in the developing country? What are they using? And do they, for example, if it's a company, like if we talk about the clothing industry, is it a company that makes sure that all of the workers have a safe and secure work environment, and that, for example, the building that the workers are working in is built for earthquake, especially if it's in an earthquake zone prone country? Things like that you have to start to think about and unpack for your business here in Wisconsin. Though you may not realize that parts and pieces of your supply chain have a dramatic impact, but they do. Everything is connected. And I think that's the cool thing about the SDG Action Manager, is it really talks about how we're all interconnected, and it talks about how taking a systems-wide approach really is the best way for us as businesses to move forward into the future. Okay, so this next slide shows you what the actual SDG Action Manager tool looks like. I kind of went up close. This is from when Evolution Marketing beta tested the tool. So what's really neat, as I've said before, is that this tool is based on the B Impact Assessment. As a certified B Corp, Evolution Marketing had the opportunity throughout actually all of 2019 to give feedback to the organizations who were putting this tool together last year, and then we got to beta test it last November. So it's kind of neat to see how we actually put the time in. Evolution Marketing answered every question in the entire tool, and then to see how the feedback was updated and brought into the process. Okay, so the SDG Action Manager tool has been developed as a management and measurement tool in recognition of the educational value of the platform, so meaning the B Impact Assessment platform, and the need not for external reporting or verification, because the folks at B Labs believe that already exists, okay? But for concrete opportunities to enable action and improvement. So that was the goal behind this. There will be no verification of a company's performance as part of the SDG Action Manager, and hence the platform will not make a claim on absolute quantifiable contributions to any SDG, okay? So just a little bit of background here. The purpose of this is to really help you map your actions to the targets of the Sustainable Development Goal, and then to help you as a business internally review your systems, okay? This program, as I said, was launched in January of 2020. It's available in a variety of languages, including English, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. And again, it's really why they thought it was important to do it this time is that we are 10 years out from meeting the SDG goals that were set by the 2030 agenda. So many people are saying that 2020 is the year of action. So this tool was brought about because of market pressures from the business community saying we need a tool to help us so that we're able to meet the 2030 goals from a business perspective. And B Labs and the UN Global Compact work together to create this tool to help businesses. So I think that's a really great thing. All right, so the SDG Action Manager, as I said, it's built on the B Impact Assessment framework. It is free, it's a public good. That means anybody can use it, any business of any size can use it. It is not audited, so it's an internal impact management tool only. And if, for example, your company says, we really want to use this as a public external impact management tool, then what you would choose to do is you would choose to go through the verification, complete it, and go through the BIA, which is the B Impact Assessment, and then become a certified B Corp. And as Jesse had said, the reality is when you're trying to address a lot of these global goals, and specifically global goals tied to carbon, you don't start at the end, you start at the beginning. So this tool is a great way to start at the beginning. And if you decide, if it makes sense for your business to say, we want to become a certified B Corp, complete the tool, maybe do it for a couple of years, gather data over time, and then say, okay, we're going to go through the verification process, because it is an arduous verification process. Your whole operations are certified and audited when you become a certified B Corp. So you should really make sure as a company that makes the most sense for your organization to do. Here's some of the features of the SDG Action Manager. What's really great is it starts with, it finds your starting point. So if you're not sure where to begin, this tool is great that way. I'm talking specifically today about climate action, but if, for example, your business was a manufacturer that dealt in the food sector, or you dealt with farming, or, there's a variety of different things our businesses can be doing. You might find that there are other SDGs that are a good fit for you. You can definitely start with those SDGs as well, because remember, everything's interconnected. Okay, so start with where it makes sense for your company. I'm highlighting today climate action, but there are other, this is a nice on-ramp in, so you could pick a different SDG if that made more sense for your company. Okay, so the first thing, starting point, learn which SDG matters most to your business based on your company profile and the types of action that you want to take. Number 2, understand and share your impact. So get a clear view of how your operations, supply chain, and business model create positive impact and identify risk areas for each SDG. Again, you don't have to do all 17 of them. You just pick the ones that are most relevant to your business at this time. You then set goals and track improvements. We have 10 years to achieve the SDGs, the 2030 goal, 2030 plan. So stay motivated and visualize your progress and use the dashboard, which is really cool. We'll look at that in just a minute. And then what I think is probably one of the best parts of this whole tool is that you're able to collaborate across your company. So you can invite your colleagues to join the SDG Action Manager. And I think this is really important when you think about it. The reality in the world today, you have operations folks, you have engineering folks, you have Marcom people, you have HR folks, you have management. All of them have their fingers at different pieces of the pie. And I think taking a holistic approach to using the SDG Action Manager makes the most sense. And if you bring all of those folks to the table, they can help you to do that. As you go through the SDG Action Manager, you will determine high impact actions based on thought-provoking yet actionable assessment, questions, benchmarks, and improvement guides. And then the last thing is that through doing this, you're going to be shifting your perspective on your business and operations and on risk. And I think it's really great because you then start to trailblaze, because I really believe that innovation comes when we start to think outside of the box. So here's actually an image of the actual SDG Action Manager Climate 13. And as you can see on this image, I have a little arrow highlighted. So what's really neat is that when you look at this, where it says SDG Action, Climate Action, SDG 13, Climate Action, you see there's a little paragraph at the top that explains what this tool is about, and this one ties in with the SDG 13. So if you're not sure what Action 13 is and you want more information, there's a little I in a circle. You can hit that, and it'll give you more information on Climate Action 13. And then here are the questions that are listed below. In each module, Okay, there are a series of questions. Remember, those questions are going to tie back to those, in this case, 3 targets that are trying to be addressed by the questions. So in this case, one of the questions is business model designed to contribute to climate action. And this is where I think, again, this tool is really unique, and it's also very forward-thinking, and it's also based on systems thinking, because it challenges businesses to unpack the rationale behind why you do what you do, meaning that we all typically find a way to do something within our system, and if it's working, we say, well, why change it? If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? That's the phrase I hear quite a bit. Well, the questions that are asked underneath the business model designed to contribute to climate change is one way of unpacking and kind of rethinking your business model. And so the question actually, what they actually ask under that is your company's business model focused on contributing to SDG 13 climate action in any of the following ways? And then they list, I believe it's 7 different ways that your business is doing things to address climate action. And I think this is really interesting because many of us don't completely unpack our services, our products, and our processes. And that's one great feature of this tool, that it helps us to unpack and think in a holistic way about the types of impacts our business is having. Okay, here's another question. Has your company done any of the following to help identify and manage its potential contributions to SDG Action 13? And I think going back to what Jessie had said with her arrow, I think this is a great kind of follow-up to that. You know, you don't have to, when you fill out these questions, you don't have to answer all of them. So when I filled this out for Evolution Marketing, I said, we have reviewed the targets of SDG 13, which I showed you earlier, and we're familiar with them. And Evolution Marketing, we're actually using those targets to make decisions for ourselves. And then we have also made a formal commitment to align our business with the Paris Agreement, and we're measuring progress towards it. But we're not able to do things that are in the middle, okay, which is totally okay. You answer where you're at today, and you use this as a benchmark so that next year, or even I like to use this as a planning tool to say, okay, what projects or actions do we want to take next year? I would then go back, and so I completed this last November, and already this year, I mean, it's April of 2020, Evolution Marketing has been doing planning for the rest of this year, and we're doing planning for next year. And I've been looking at the SDG Action Manager tool and looking at some of the other SDGs that maybe Evolution Marketing isn't doing, I feel like enough work within to meet from an impact standpoint. And so to me, this is just a great tool. All right, here's another example of what the questions inside the tool look like. So what I did is I circled in red across the top, so it says total scope 1 greenhouse gas emissions. So the learn and the feedback. So if you're going through this tool, and again, you're a newbie, you're not sure where to begin, and you have questions about the question, you click the learn button at the very top, it will give you information about that question. It'll even give you examples of what businesses have done, which I think is great, and it provides resources. Actually, that's Evolution Marketing's Scope 1 emission from the 2018 fiscal year. And then towards the bottom of this question, and this is what I think, again, is another super cool feature of this tool, is that it shows, again, the interconnected nature of the different SDGs and how actions within climate, if you take climate action, you might also be impacting other SDGs. And so as you can see there, it says this question can also be found in SDG Action Manager 7, Affordable and Clean Energy, and SDG Action 14, Life Below Water. So meaning that the actions your business is taking to address greenhouse gas emissions, for example, such as measuring these scopes, that those have direct impacts on affordable and clean energy and life below water. And then the last part of this is that if you decide down the way that you want to go become a certified B Corp and do the B impact assessment, as you're answering the SDG Action Manager questions, they're being recorded. And as you can see here, it says B impact assessment environment at the very bottom. That means whatever you put in here, that information will translate perfectly into the B impact assessment, okay? So you don't have to recreate anything, but it also gives you, it's a good way for you to, if you're interested in doing the B impact, it gives you a way to kind of look at, to see where you're at as far as the assessment goes. Okay, and I want to talk about risk real quick, because I think it's super important especially in this day and age that we're living in right now with the global pandemic, to kind of think through the risks of our business. And I think the risks that our businesses in America and the world are facing today are very different than they were 10 or 15 years ago. And so I think that for me, it's really great to look at this question to say, okay, here's a question that the tool is asking me, and it's really in a thoughtful manner asking me to unpack and really think through my operations. So are any of the following true regarding potential risks that your company's activities pose to achieving SDG 13 climate action? I think this is really great because it makes you to stop and think about how you're operating your business. And are there things you're doing that are risky behavior right now that you can then turn around to become an opportunity to help you find success in the future, okay? And then here are, as Kathy had said, here are 3 different links to resources to learn more about this new tool that is free and open to the public. I'm now going to invite everyone to come back on so the 3 of us can have a closing remarks and thank everybody for being together to share this lovely information today.
All right, great. Thank you, Lisa. I don't know, Kathy, if you had anything you wanted to add to the conversation.
I don't think so, beyond just, now is the time to act. So there's a lot of really good tools here, lots of ways to start exploring these issues. And, certainly I think all of us are available as you have questions, as you start to dig in. So hopefully you will find the tool that's right for you and dig in.
Yes, absolutely. And the Green Masters program is a great place to start for any business. And the SDG Action Manager is really great if you have global operations or you want to be connected to that, the sort of global sense of working for good for our world. And both really great tools. And as Lisa mentioned, B Corp is sort of not necessarily a starting point, but because it's an arduous process, but really great for something to work towards. And just with that, I'm going to thank everybody for listening, and remember that this is part of a series, so you can learn more about what you can do for climate and carbon in the other webinars. And thank you again for listening. Here are emails if you have any questions for us or want to learn more or follow up on anything you heard today. So with that, I'll close the webinar, and again, thank you for listening.